figure out my angle here.
You don't know about the orphan show thing or movie? It's like based on a true story where this like older woman pretended to be like this girl and got adopted and like was gonna like fuck the dad and kill the mom. It was weird.
Oh my God, that's
True
like real.
story. They're based on something real. I don't know.
Let me know when we're ready to record.
We're recording. We have been.
Oh shit, I didn't realize.
Yeah, we've been recording for like.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm gonna start like from the top. Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to Tea for Tea, the show that stands for. Naomi came up with the tagline, so I'm gonna let her say what it is.
Girl, that was ChatGPT. I don't
Oh shit, what did it? I don't know. It was actually kind of cool. Yeah.
It was good. I have it written down. Brewing conversations and spilling tea with three fabulous trans women.
See, that sums it up better than I ever could. And yeah, so this is the show. This is technically, I would say it's technically our second episode, but like not really, because like the first episode we were just kind of testing shit out, and we're still doing that and working out the kinks of this. But chronologically, this is the second time we've gotten together on camera and talked with each other. So maybe that counts, and maybe we'll still put up the first episode.
I hope not.
Okay, coming out next week. Okay, I'm Alana.
I'm Naomi.
And I'm Cassandra.
How was your week, ladies?
Getting ready for facial surgery, so very excited.
That is
Congrats.
insanely exciting. That how long have you been counting down those days?
At least a year at this point.
And you'll be joining us on
Awesome.
this side of FFS as another.
What are you talking? I haven't had surgery. I haven't had surgery.
Yeah, that's right. Alana's a cis woman.
I mean, you know, for the likes, y'all. Anyway, I am insanely excited for you, Cassandra. That's like a giant milestone and life-changing in many ways. It gave me a lot of personal comfort with dysphoria.
But get used to the swollen face for a good solid couple months.
Oh, that sucks.
That's a whole different
sure.
one. So you're gonna have not just like the before and after. There is another phase that you're gonna be staring at for a little bit. And you know what? Embrace her. She needs love too.
And some good meds spaced every 3 to 6 hours apart. That you don't want to neglect that love either.
Yeah, I want to hopefully be sleeping or on something for at least the initial couple days.
You know, you just find your little comfort zone. You make your little nest. Perch yourself into the corner of a couch and stare at a TV and drink meal replacement. It'll go
Soylent is the new mimosa, I hear. So
that's right. Yeah, chocolate Soylent. When you haven't had anything else, that is straight chocolate milk, and it is delightful. Honestly, I was like downing that. I was so happy.
Oh, you forgot to say sponsored before.
Sponsored by Soylent.
I'm kidding. I mean, you guys can sponsor us, Soylent. We're like, we're desperate,
but by Soylent and any other post-surgical drinks.
If we can pretend to tie it to trans stuff, we will.
We will find a way. We'll give it a pronoun if nothing else.
Before I get too far, I wanted to ask about actually something that I know was part of your week, Naomi, because both Cassandra and I went and visited you, but you literally became a supermodel, which I can't say about probably anybody else that I'm good friends with.
That was wild. So for people who don't know, I was selected as one of the trans women to partake in the annual Slay model search.
What would you say the most challenging thing to learn was?
Finding comfort in front of a crowd is hard for anyone, but for someone like us, it can often be even harder because we feel as though we are supposed to hide.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, dang girl, you exuded confidence. Like,
oh, you fucking killed it.
Yeah, I mean, there's things like looking back at the videos, I'm like, I wish I would have done something different here or there, but
oh sure.
Overall, I'm proud of myself. So,
and you should be, because that was pretty amazing.
Cassandra and Alana came to visit.
Yes, and it was a mistake because I took photos beside her model friends and like immediately looked at them the next day and was like, Wait, they look like both so naturally like sultry and sexy, and like I looked like a fucking librarian who was like so happy that she got like the newest shipment of books that go in IOB.
You know, I
But
would say like that's not true, but it was like,
yeah, no, I
here's
definitely
the
looked like a
thing though,
fucking
after
goober
like
for sure.
literally walking off of a runway, like you're kind of like stuck in that sultry mode. So anybody trying to take pictures with you, you're gonna get a picture with somebody kind of acting a little sultry. So, but then
Yeah,
like
well,
also to make up for it, you have a picture of me crawling out of a trunk.
It's
Like
true.
yeah, but you still look like a fucking sexy
You still
model, and
look
it
great.
pisses me
Exactly.
off. I was like, what
I'm
the
modeling
hell?
the trunk. I'm modeling the luggage. I had to
I
climb
know,
over
but
3
like,
models worth of luggage in my trunk to find my purse and pop my trunk open. And y'all take a
if
picture.
that photo was of me, it would literally be just like all armpit. Like I know,
My
but you had your
boob
face
was out.
perfectly,
There was
like,
nipple
but
showing.
you definitely chose your best assets. So okay, just how does
Not Alana
one?
just complimenting my tit. Like,
I mean, I called like I saw it coming out of a trunk. How?
and
By the
also this was
way,
our first time meeting in person.
oh, that is true.
For people
Yeah.
listening.
Like, yeah, literally
So
with like 5 minutes of knowing each other, she was like, "Hey, by the way, I have a tow dude coming because I locked my keys in my trunk."
I dive
And so,
headfirst, legs in the back
yes,
seat.
she did not waste any time when that guy, popped her door open within 2 seconds, was coming out of the back of the car. Like she just got a birth given to her by a Buick Verano.
I think I leave really good first impressions,
I would say
frankly.
so.
Before we, delay too long here, I was gonna get to a couple news items if that's okay with y'all.
Of course.
There was a rabbi who did a number of appearances like on CNN, and she was discussing, some of the Israel-Hamas conflict. But instead of focusing on anything that she had to say, and I have to preface, she's a cisgender woman, but she has polycystic ovary syndrome, which literally approximately 13% of the women in this country have. So it's not like a rare thing by any means. But that can affect how your hormone levels are in your body. And she has some facial hair. All the pundits on the right wing focused on what she looked like instead of anything she had to say, and went ahead to label her as a man the entire time.
That was, quote, Rabbi Jessica Rosenberg. Jessica is a man pretending to be a woman. And I don't know if she's pretending to be a rabbi too, but she barely tries to hide the fact that she's a man. She sports a beard.
A couple of levels of, being a shitty ass person there.
Right.
But the standard of womanhood, in order to exclude trans people, at the end of the day, will be constantly policing all women's bodies.
The more this happens, the more they're gonna look like idiots, honestly. Because
Agreed.
they're just gonna
100%
end up
agreed.
looking like they don't understand that social expectations of human beings aren't universal.
This is the side effect of like the trans witch hunt that the gender critical and like the anti-trans folk are about. And this is the harm it causes even to cisgender women, where they become
100%.
targeted by this hate.
One of the people hating on her was Libs of TikTok's own Chaya Raichik.
Oh boy.
She said, a man pretending to be a woman who was also pretending to be a rabbi. I mean, if you look at Chaya, she's not your fucking standard, model-esque woman by any means. She has like a heavier lower jaw. Like, does that mean if I'm a trans investigator, she's got a fucking dick? That's how we do it, right, Chaya? She's a man. But like, I don't want to make those standards. That's fucking silly, right?
Yeah.
Does it sound silly when I talk about it with somebody like that? Or
something that I've seen online is folks will take a picture of like a cisgender woman and then post it into anti-trans circles of like, look at this trans woman. And then these anti-trans folks will just attack this woman and, like you're saying, try to claim so many different masculine features.
Bodies have hair, bodies have muscle, bodies have different shapes and sizes, heights. And if somebody stands out as being less common in any sort of way, they're an easy target.
But like, you can have the most cis-passing trans woman in the world. Imagine Ariana Grande came out tomorrow. All of a sudden, tons of dudes would be picking apart everything about her that they think makes her masculine. So it doesn't matter. Like, it's not about what they see even. It's just about like this arbitrary thing based upon how somebody's born that they don't put to anything else. We don't care if somebody changes like their gets their eyesight fixed with LASIK, or gets like
Or
their
faith,
teeth fixed with braces, or gets any other sort of
Dyes
things
their
that
hair.
gender affirming care
Right.
is used for. But like when it comes to trans people, it's like, well, we're not going to give credence that stuff actually does anything medically. It just,
Mhm.
People like things to fit neatly into boxes.
Mhm.
And so you have base biology and all this kind of stuff that,
Exactly.
like, yes, you can say in a general sense, this kind of covers this, but it's not the full picture.
Cursory knowledge doesn't mean like the end of learning, and they weaponize that around hate.
right.
Level.
I think many people have a idea of chromosomes, but that's such a simplified idea of even how sexes
Mhm.
diverge from one another. And I always hear people use the term biological, even trying to differentiate in good faith sometimes, differentiate like trans women from cis women, like biological women versus trans women. But you got to understand biology isn't static, and it's not limited to just your birth traits.
Right.
Biology is an ever-changing thing of your body status as it goes. Like if somebody is born with diabetes or they acquire diabetes, you wouldn't say like, well, one's biological, the other's not. Insulin, get this, is a hormone.
A
That hormone,
bioidentical hormone.
yeah, the insulin that you would give them has a biological effect. But when it comes to trans stuff, when it comes to transgender affirming care, somehow that's just this palette that you put on, that's a facade, that's not remotely affecting biology. It's
My
so
body runs on estrogen, luckily. And if my body wasn't meant to, it wouldn't know what to do with it.
Exactly.
So it's like a computer. It knows the software.
sure.
Exactly.
It knows how to run
It's just
it.
a swap in the program. Everyone generates both testosterone and estrogen. That's just how the human
What?
body works.
What? No, that's
Right?
not that. Oh my God,
Right?
Cassandra.
And those levels vary and change over a person's lifetime. And that shows, like, to your point, Naomi, the flexibility of our bodies in terms of just flipping that switch, and then the body will follow suit and express those secondary like sexual characteristics. That's just how we work.
I may have been introduced to testosterone, but I'm just detransitioning, baby. Like, I'm going back to woman. Fuck that. Like,
I wish,
Like,
like, realistically, it's just like should get to a place. I never will, but like, how are people happy? What makes somebody
Yeah.
happy? Like, if you're
That's
not
how I
hurting
think
other
about it.
people, then yeah, it's like let them be happy. Don't draw these weird, arbitrary lines on like how you're allowed to look, how you're allowed to act, whatever.
A lot of the things that they have expectations of for gender or whatever in society, it hasn't been like that for very long. Like,
That's true. That is true.
lifetimes are short, and we only kind of see a certain chunk of history. But like, I mean, we all know that going back, a lot of the things that women do were created for men: wigs, makeup, heels. I mean, frilly shirts.
yeah, exactly. Look at like the 1700s, the founding fathers. They all wore wigs and makeup and heels, to your point. Like, and these are the dudes that are idolized as like,
You
yeah,
put George Washington through here, people are like, look at that drag queen. He's gonna get in trouble
exactly.
with some of those anti-drag laws.
To that point about history, that actually helps me segue into the other news story I was going to talk about. Is Roman Emperor Elagabalus has been reclassified as being trans.
Thank God, whenever anybody brings up the idea that trans stuff is new, I like to bring her up. And then they're like, no, you can't say that. You can't go back and change the past. I'm like, I'm not changing anything. Y'all just didn't listen.
I'm very much not about just like rewriting shit for the sake of rewriting shit, but
Absolutely not.
that doesn't at all seem like the case in this.
I mean, basically the gist is that she insisted on being called lady, and pronouns that are feminine. I believe she also had word out that any surgeon who could give her a vagina,
Yep, 100%.
yeah,
I
any
was just
surgeon
gonna
who
say
could give
that.
her a vagina was, welcome to come on by, right? So
Yeah, what's the Roman equivalent of the Gucci Gucci?
the coochie coochie.
The Emperor's New Pussy. Sorry, my jokes get worse with time, y'all. It's interesting seeing a lot of people get angry about this, claiming that it's just some like sort of woke revisionist history, but you don't request a vagina unless you're pretty certain of your gender identity.
It's so interesting to watch people get so butthurt about things that they otherwise didn't know about. These people had never heard of this person
why do
in
you
their
think they
entire
get so
life.
butthurt? Why are they getting butthurt by that,
Why are they
Naomi?
getting butthurt? This person, their entire life, the information has been out there that this person was a trans woman. It's just one museum is actually classifying it as such at this point. And the thing is these people had no connection to this whatsoever. They didn't care. They were not
And
invested in this. They're
fucking
just mad, and
same.
anything that
Who-
challenges
Seriously.
what they thought, because they didn't know there was a trans emperor.
Well, and that kind of ties into their whole concept of like, transgender is this modern trend in the past like decade that's emerged as part of the woke agenda. And it's like, to that point, you look back and cultures have had transgender individuals like across the world for like, thousands of years. Like in Thailand and over like, the American Indians had, the third gender and two-spirit in more modern terms. This isn't a new concept by any stretch of the
Not at all.
imagination.
Not at
And,
all. The ways of being able to medically accomplish it obviously have
yeah.
gained in leaps and bounds, as much of modern medicine has. But the idea that you feel extremely uncomfortable as your gender, so much so that it affects your quality of life so severely, and wanting to do something about it, that's a tale as old as time as far as trans people go.
Exactly.
And yeah, and it's unfortunate, but also fortunate now that finally acknowledging historically some of those people, and silly looking at people who never wanted to acknowledge it, having to have revisionist history from the get-go, now consider it revisionist history to actually acknowledge facts as they were.
Mhm.
Just
The
wait until
mental
they find out
gymnastics
about
that
the
they-
studies on the brain.
The what?
Just wait until they find out about the studies on the brain that show that trans
Oh,
brains, even before
that's
hormone
true.
replacement
That is true.
therapy,
That is
have
true.
features that are more similar to the gender that they identify with.
Associate with, exactly, yeah.
I mean, if anything, being trans is clearly biological in many cases, and maybe it's just essentially an intersex condition of the brain.
That
right?
I think there's a lot of credence to that. Which
It's
I
an
want to
intersex
do like an
condition.
entirely like full episode about the science of trans, but yeah, just like very briefly, there are so many studies that show things, even including like when identical twins versus fraternal twins, the identical twins were more likely to be trans than the fraternal twins. Very interesting that a lot of things show a very specific biological proponent as part of it. Not
As I
that it
like to
should
say
matter
in
at all,
general,
but
you are your mind, right?
true.
You can't change your brain. Your brain makes your body as tools, so you can get around, so you can grab things, so you can see things, so you can experience the world. And if you can't change your brain, you have to change the tools you're working with.
Mhm.
That's the
That's
best
true.
we can do.
So this actually brings me to like the main topic of our discussion here, which is each tell our story of how we ended up transitioning.
I'm a woman. I know I'm a woman. I've always known I was a woman of some sort, right? Like for me, I grew up in Ohio, and where I grew up, there wasn't a lot of information going around about trans people. There were people of the LGBTQ community, but people regularly attributed trans people to just being drag queens. But I actually had a trans cousin, and I didn't know until after I began my transition. So it existed within my family even, but it went unsaid. I grew up very much interested in feminine things. We didn't have a lot of money, and I had brothers, and so it's not like I could use my sister's dolls or anything like that. But I
Right.
did have an aunt that had a Barbie collection, and I would play Barbies and watch Sailor Moon and all that. And I had my own Barbies. They were Jack and Rose. I named them after Titanic. I had baby dolls. I loved long gloves. I thought they were elegant. There's so many things that that were just innately me. They weren't inspired by or influenced by anyone. It's just the things that I enjoyed. And I didn't have the language to talk about it. But just like how many people go around saying I'm one of the boys, I would go around saying I'm one of the girls. My friends were always women. I always felt more comfortable around women. I always felt more myself. I always had more in common with other women. And yeah, as I got older, I discovered transition. I was too afraid to do it. I didn't think I'd ever be happy with my outcome.
Before you go fast forward to there, did you have like a point in your life when you're younger that you recall feeling like different, than
Oh, yeah. When I was younger, I knew I was different. I knew I was very different than, the boys that I was supposed to get along with. I had two brothers. I was very different than my brothers. They always thought I was gay. So there was clearly something that was noticeable, noticeably different about me. And that
yeah,
wasn't just them, it was people in school, it was people in my workplace. I would actively be dating women and they would still think there's no way that person's gay. Like that person is gay.
spot on.
Yeah, right? I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Little did they know I was in lesbian relationships. So yes. But they picked up on femininity. But yeah, I always knew I was different.
What was your kind of, for lack of a better term, like your breaking point in which you decided like, you know what? I am trans, I'm acknowledging it, I'm actually going to transition and do something about it.
I told people as far back as middle school, that I felt more like a girl and that, I wish I was a girl and all that. And so in terms of like expressing that I was trans, and that I should do something about it or could do something about it, that had always kind of been around, but especially in college. My ex-fiance, I told very early on in our relationship. And we stayed together for 10 years, and she supported me greatly, and still does. Told me I should do it, told me I should do it, told me it was worth it. It was clear that I was a woman. I needed to do this. And I fought it, I fought it, and I fought it. But eventually I didn't have a reason to really fight anymore. Like,
Why did you fight to begin with? I mean, I know
I was
obvious reasons,
afraid.
but
I was incredibly afraid. I was afraid to be seen as different. I was afraid to
yeah,
be an outcast, to be someone who was abnormal. I was successful as a cishet white man. Like
right,
I found success, and I I knew I was going to be giving that away, and in the end it didn't matter because I needed to be me. And
yeah,
now I'm finding that success can look different, but I can still find success now. I mean, in the couple of years that I've been doing this at this point, a lot has changed. But if you would have told me 2 years
like
ago
becoming
that
a
I'd be walking a
supermodel.
runway, like,
Yeah,
like life is what life is, and it has twists and turns, and you never really know where it's going to take you.
when wife hands you lemons, transition. No kidding,
Exactly.
kidding. Fucking live the TikTok and clip that shit too. Don't clip, actually clip it, Chaya. Do
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Clip it.
Man. But I
Right.
decided to go
Yeah.
ahead and transition because I had nothing to lose. Being in my own mind, I was at wit's end.
I get it. Yeah.
I just was like, look, I do it or I don't, and I need to do it. Like, it's like this is the option that keeps me, healthy and keeps me around, and I tried as hard as I could to hide it for as long as I could,
Yeah.
and I just couldn't do it anymore. So,
Yeah. I can relate to that sentiment entirely.
yeah.
Mhm.
How about you, Cassandra? What's your transition story?
So there's definitely some similarities. I grew up in a small mountain town in Southern California, very religious place. And in growing up, I didn't have any visibility or representation. The only ideas I had were very negative stereotypes, very harmful stereotypes. Going through high school, I was constantly called gay. Actually, like I was bullied by a couple different groups and called a girl. And if they had just been nicer, I could have figured this out a lot sooner.
Right.
Yeah, for real, and could have saved a lot of pain and
And it's
sacrifice,
wild that they'll call you a girl,
right? And then
but
you
then as soon as you're
transition,
like,
it's
you're
like,
right, they're like, no,
fuck,
no,
like, come on, give me a break,
absolutely not.
right?
How dare you say
Girl.
I'm right?
Yeah,
I
girl,
was trying to be
please.
mean.
So yeah, I tried to conform to society's expectation for what my gender expression was at that point. And I paid for that in terms of just my mental well-being. Eventually it got to the point where I had become self-destructive in a lot of different ways. And I looked really hard into like HRT, what was possible at that point. I was like in my early 30s, and I didn't think there was much hope. And then looking online, finding folks that had transitioned in their 30s and saying like, no, it's never too late. It's never too late to find happiness.
Yeah.
I started on that journey and I haven't looked back, and I can't go back. Like I actually enjoy being alive. I enjoy experiences, meeting new people. Like I had a lot of social anxiety. Like I'm still consider myself an introvert, but like I actually like going out now. I like interacting. I like doing things. And a big part of that was, transitioning and being able to have my internal identity match my body.
I think that's what it's all about, honestly.
Mhm.
What about you, Alana?
I mean, I had like I feel like stereotypical thing where it's like, I knew since as young as I could remember that there was something different about me. I was like naturally, as a kid, very effeminate. Um, you learn really quickly what stuff will get you scoffed at, made fun of, you know, pushed by other kids, etc.
Mhm.
And you kind of adapt, but like I was always adapting who I was to fit what I knew was normal. But I specifically remember when I was really young being excited for like this like dance class that I was gonna start. And like early on to the dance class, I kind of like divided the room up into the boys and the girls in the class. And that was kind of like the first sort of realization that like, oh wait, I'm different than those people. It felt very isolating because like I didn't identify with the group of people that I was segmented into. Like I remember specifically seeing like the older dancers in that school and like the girls, you know, poised and graceful, and the boys were this strong and stern and rigorous. Not that any of that means anything when it comes to gender, but like I always felt that I was, at the very least, put into a role that I never felt fit who I was. And it was very apparent from the get-go. And that arbitrary dividing line that we have that's, seemingly invisible, but very apparent to everybody was much more so to me throughout every stage of my life. Like I remember when I was like I don't know, 8, 9 years old, I was obsessed with like those Animorphs books, and
Yeah.
they had like a very specific obsession for the fact that like, wait, these kids who, I mean, they're cool because they're like saving the world anyway from
Right.
the
Yeah. Finding
Zergs or whatever it
aliens.
was.
And,
Is it the
exactly.
Zergs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something. Yeah. The brain
Right.
works.
But not just were they saving the world, but like they could like acquire the DNA of the, I think in the book it was like animals that they
Yeah.
touched, and then like transform into that animal. And like I would obviously, you know where this is going, but like I would go to bed fucking, you know, praying to God at night that I could have that ability just so I could like become a girl. But obviously it wasn't the case. And I would spend every year of my life having, again, being on that other side of that line, you know, whether it was like in high school and going to prom and feeling just so devastated that I have to go as this person versus that person. Or like when I was in college, you know, I joined a fraternity to try to experience what it was that guys are supposed to experience, that whole camaraderie and you know, I don't know, whatever guys are supposed to do. But like I didn't have interest
Brotherhood.
in chewing tobacco and playing Madden and hitting the wall when our football team lost. That wasn't me. Not that that has to be you
Hit
to
the
be
wall. Ditch
either
the
gender,
ball.
but like, yeah, I just at every step felt stuck in a role that I never wanted to be in. I would leave the college party early to go back home and to my apartment and just like sob into my pillow, so devastated that like I had to keep up this facade, this never-ending facade, you know, pretend every day that I had these interests that weren't my interests, that I had this way of interacting with people that wasn't natural, but, you know, was necessary, and that I had to police who I was at every point just to be seen as normal. And that was a fucking nightmare.
You so eloquently put the experience of so many people, you know, into your words. And it's like that's your experience, but it's fascinating how
And
similar it is to my
it's
own.
crazy because I honestly I don't even know how to vocalize it. I don't know how to vocalize because
I don't
anybody else
either,
that
but
that hears it that isn't trans thinks like, wait, you had some interests you couldn't express and you changed your whole identity. And
no,
like
it's not
I
that
wish it was as
simple.
simple as just adopting
Yeah.
my interest, even if they're non-traditional or whatever. But it was like every
It's
stage being stuck,
you.
yes, walking through a play that you didn't write, but you have to do that role every night and you hate it. You hate it with every ounce of your being, but you still have to perform it because you know if you don't, you lose maybe everything and everybody that's in your life.
Yeah.
And that fucking sucks. And
Mhm.
like I was afraid of not just how my life would blow up necessarily, of like what am I gonna lose in terms of, you know, my job or whatever, even though those were all very real things that I was afraid of. But to me, it was always just like, I can't let people down. I can't let people that think of me as this person, that to not be what what I am, because like I know that that's what they want me to be. And you know, I was afraid of letting down my friends, my parents, my coworkers. Like I remember like when I was younger, I knew what my parents wanted me to be.
Mhm.
And that was a, you know, the traditional straight male that gets a family and you know, does their thing and runs the family, et cetera, whatever. Well, all that sort of patriarchal bullshit. Um, and like I knew that because I was, you know, naturally kind of effeminate at a time. And I know my parents wondered about me. Um, you know, my mom specifically like caught me at different times, like um, you know, dressed up and that never went over well. But you know, I know my
Same.
parents always suspected, yeah, like that I was potentially different. Maybe I was gay. And I was afraid even then of like letting them down even in that regard at all. And I remember like when I saw Titanic for the first time, I saw it with them in theaters. And you have that, you know, that iconic like scene where Kate Winslet's character gets, you know, drawn. Um and obviously she's very busty. I knew my parents will be overjoyed if I mention that I, you know, noticed Kate Winslet's breasts, which I did. And like, I remember my dad gave me literally a high five and then said, "Our son's not gay," you know? And it's like, you know,
Wow.
I, and I,
My
I
parents
knew
were
a
like,
reaction like that was gonna happen.
My
Mhm.
parents knew I wanted to see that movie like with all my heart and soul for some reason. Like I really wanted to see that movie. And it actually helped lead to my career in a weird way because like
Oh, interesting.
I already liked drawing. I was already like constantly drawing, but I actually really I was like, I want to draw like Jack. And I ended up going to art school and lo and behold.
Right on.
Why is
Mhm.
Titanic so important to both of us? What the fuck?
I don't know. I mean, mine was definitely more of a, I gotta prove to my parents I'm not gay, so I'm gonna, talk about a boob for a second. And boy, did it work for quite a while.
Which is a very deep conversation, frankly.
Right.
That is
Yes,
very
very deep. High fives abounded. But so anyway, it was something that I intentionally, like we all did, kept not just like inside of me and buried, but like suffocated. Try to get
Mhm.
rid of that with all that I could. Like I was so fucking determined I was gonna take this to my grave. Like
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
I saw a therapist hoping I was gonna get some conversion therapy. Like I desperately was
Okay.
trying
Oh,
to get
wow.
somebody to talk me out of it and talk me
I
how
went to
it
several
made no
therapists as
fucking
well.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They act as though
And
we don't try. Like nobody wants to be trans. It sucks.
it's
Like
always the last resort.
it's
The
the
last
last
fucking
resort.
resort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do everything we can oftentimes to fit in. We do what we can to
To our own
live a
detriment.
life that is easier, cheaper,
Mhm.
less dangerous.
More financially rewarding.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is every reason in the world to be a cis person. Why? Why would I choose not to be?
You really need to watch
Because
those.
I'm a glutton for punishment. I love when people
Glutton
fucking
for
make fun of
punishment.
me. I love that like I might face the possibility of a felony if I use a bathroom in certain states. It's like this it's so trendy. So trendy.
But having listened to everyone discuss our shared experiences and, unique experiences and growing up as a trans individual and discovering ourselves, one thing is for sure. We know ourselves. We truly know ourselves. Even if we can't vocalize what it is, we know who we are. And there's not a
Right.
single person on this planet who can tell us otherwise.
Yeah.
And this is something we
And
can
they'll
cover in
try.
another
They'll definitely
episode.
try.
I mean, if anybody tries to tell us otherwise, fuck them.
Yeah. I mean, and
Like,
to that point, it's like cis people know that they're cis. You know that you're not trans. So
so people have said things like, okay, well, what does it feel like to be a woman? Like, for example, like a cis woman may say, what does it feel like to be a woman? I don't feel like a woman. I just feel like me. And I'm
Mhm.
like, think about like a broken bone. Like you don't feel your bones unless there's something wrong with them. And
That's a good way to put
so,
it.
yeah, you don't feel your gender unless there's something wrong with it, like a broken
exactly.
bone.
That's a good point.
And
Okay, y'all ready to get to the
The
questions of the
lightning
week?
round.
it's
Yes,
time for
yes.
Q&A.
Exactly.
We
It's
have
a
There we
lightning
questions
go.
from our fans.
Cue the graphic.
Cue the graphic. It's a graphic weird
I
graphic.
think I shot some snot out of my nose.
As per usual. It's like a
But
sink with a faucet.
I've had a cold the last couple days though, so
I
got
feel
that extra faucety. Okay, first question. How can we normalize non-binary trans folks who remain non-conforming?
I think in the end, we all just need to be accepting. It's
Exactly.
I know.
easier said than done, but people are people and people have their own interests and their own styles and their own aesthetics and their own experiences in life and their own souls.
In their own identities.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
because someone is different than you doesn't make them wrong.
Right.
100%. It's always crazy to me that there's this desire to be slightly above the very bottom rung on the ladder, the acceptance ladder for the people that hate us all in general.
It's like when
Mhm.
people don't know how to swim and they're all in a pool. People are pushing people down so that they can get air.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
it's not the right way to go about it.
Not at all. Not at all.
Nobody wins.
A
Yeah.
world full of assholes. Don't be the asshole.
Literally. Everybody has an asshole.
Mhm.
All right.
Doesn't mean you got to be one.
Okay. Next question. How has your experience changed since switching genders?
Oh, that's an entire show.
There are definitely pros and cons to being perceived as male or female, right? Like male privilege in general is real. People can deny it all they want, but I mean, firsthand, I've lost said privilege, and it's a real thing.
Yeah, totally.
Men are seen as reliable and strong and the person you go to if you need help and all of that. Really, it's just the patriarchy, and it hurts everybody because men also don't get the help that they need with, support emotionally, and
Showing
oftentimes feel
emotions is a sign
lonely.
of weakness. Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like on, the woman side of things, when you're perceived as a woman, I mean, yeah, you don't get paid as much as a man. You don't get treated with respect. You get treated as inferior. But at times people often treat you more gently, which can be a
Yeah.
good or a bad
100.
thing.
Yeah.
You're more delicate.
Yeah.
Doors get held for you. People, go out of their way to try to assist you with things, which can be annoying at times, but also can be endearing at others,
The average stranger, I felt, maybe regarded me a little bit nicer, get more smiles from the cashier or whatever. But like,
At the same
but
time, while those people are nicer, sometimes people be scary. And that's
that's
something
true too.
that
That is 100% true.
that's definitely something that changed.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
afraid often. I mean, I was
There
afraid
was
before.
never,
I'm afraid now.
right.
Mhm.
No, but there never was a time prior that I would ever like actually be worried leaving a place at night or whatever.
Within the 2 years that I have gone through my transition thus far, I've experienced the worst of people. I've experienced the things that women deal with often and have for millennia. It really does shape you going forward, right? Like, one thing about being trans is that growing up, boys tend to be raised a certain way, girls tend to be raised a certain way. Girls are warned of certain things, taught certain ways of existing out in the world to protect themselves. And we never got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to take a crash course basically in
That is,
survival.
yeah.
Yup.
Crash course is a very apt way of putting it. A
Yeah.
lot of crashes in that course.
Yeah.
Do you ever have imposter syndrome and self-doubt despite passing? Do you think imposter syndrome, is that something either of you have felt
I
during your
often feel
transitions?
imposter syndrome, yes.
And when you say imposter syndrome, are you referring to like imposter syndrome as a woman or as a trans woman even?
I think there's a part of me that really didn't want to be a trans woman. I fought against it. So
Yeah,
there is
I
like
get
an
that.
actual, like, I wanted to, like, whatever. So there's that. But like now I pass better than I used to. And I feel imposter syndrome about that and the way I look. And sometimes I feel, based on the way people talk about us in the media and everything, sometimes I'm like, am I like a secondary type of woman, or am I, as good as other women, or, it really kind of can get to you. So I think I feel imposter syndrome mostly due to outside sources. I think if I was left to my own devices and just, respected and treated as another human being, another woman,
Yeah,
I don't think I'd
I
have the same issue. But I do think that outside sources push me to question myself more than I deserve, really.
I would say it's probably the exact same way with me, like I can even go for stretches of time where it's just like I don't even think anything about it and it's just like, yeah, this is who I am. But then like I will see a news article or get certain, online comments, even though I don't really give those much credence. But like, you know, when you're told time and again that you are an other, like sometimes it's hard to not really start to believe that about yourself.
I'm still in the midst of my transition. I don't feel like I pass. I feel like I stand out and I'm easily identifiable. And there's a whole discussion there about talking about wanting to pass and how that shouldn't be necessary. But no, I definitely feel that way. Like recently driving back, I stopped at a large gas station and, had to use the restroom. And when I went in, it wasn't very busy. I did my business, and when I left, there was a line that was wrapping back out the door. Um, and it felt like as soon as I stepped out of that stall, like a hush just came over, like everything. And so, I kind of just disassociated, washed my hands, got some paper towels, and just walked out. But yeah, that's something I'm dealing with a lot at the moment. Of in particularly feminine spaces. I feel
I mean,
like
that's something that I think every trans person has to, at one point at least, go through and navigate the awkwardness of feeling, where do I belong? Where will I not draw attention and people, feel weirded out with me being there, whatever. Like I remember, like, first time I ever used a female restroom, and it was only ever because, like, I got to the point where, like, being in the male restroom, like, would make the dudes there uncomfortable.
and it's a
And so I
safety
started,
issue.
yeah, and so I started using the female restroom. But I remember very specifically the very first time I did it, like, I was like so fucking anxious, and like I went in the stall, and like my cell phone like started ringing, and I went to pick it up, and like my hand just kind of like shook as I grabbed it, and like I dropped my phone, and it went like under, like, two stalls over under both of them, and having to ask for that back, and get handed underneath that was fucking mortifying. I felt like potentially I was the scary trans person trying to film people through the stalls, even though it's just like, drop my fucking phone.
Hey, it's still
Yeah,
better than the stories I hear of like the nightmares that some trans men have to deal with, where their dick falls out and rolls under the stall.
that is
At least
definitely,
your dick didn't fall off and roll
yes,
into.
true. I mean, sometimes I wish that I did, but
I mean, same.
thank you for the silver lining.
Silver lining on everything, girl. Everything.
Okay, let's finish up with the question that you got, Naomi.
So the question is, what is up with the way that cis society reacts as a whole when a trans person achieves something significant? I'm thinking namely about when Kim Petras got a Grammy. Suddenly, people are a lot more comfortable expressing transphobic vitriol. It's as if people are only comfortable with us when we're in a pitiable position. Why is that?
Well, I think a part of that goes back to just the overall transphobic rhetoric, especially for trans women that were co-opting or stealing womanhood, where that couldn't be farther from the truth. Like, I don't know, but not to speak for you two, but I definitely consider myself a feminist, and a very strong
Oh, for
advocate
sure.
to,
Yeah.
to any cisgender woman. Like we've been saying, we gave up our male privilege card. And yeah, like we're all about empowerment and seeing women succeed, whether they're cis or trans. Like we're not trying to take anything, we're not trying to steal anyone's thunder. We're just also trying to be successful or amazing individuals as well.
Regarding Kim Petras, I think it was like 6 months ago, she appeared in I don't know,
Illustrated.
one of those, yeah, Sports Illustrated. One of the girls, not
Right,
the
one of
girl,
four.
one of the girls. Yeah. And yet that didn't stop literally every pundit saying how this is taking everything away from real women, et cetera, et cetera, et
They
cetera.
should have been happy. They had Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Definitely, Martha is kicking ass these days, I have to say.
Martha, girl, Martha. We need to get her on this podcast. I have a feeling she'd love us.
Megyn Kelly specifically, regarding the Sports Illustrated thing, went on an entire tirade that young boys who Sports Illustrated is supposedly marketed to won't be able to, get off to a real woman. Now they're stuck getting off to a trans woman.
My understanding of the cover of the Sports Illustrated magazine is it has one main purpose, and that's for 15-year-old boys to spend some alone time with it in the bathroom. I'm thinking this isn't the way to get that done.
Like, what?
Wow.
Why is that a reason for
I didn't hear
anything?
that.
Girl, little boys don't need to be like looking at none of that shit like that anyway.
That line of taking something away from a quote unquote real woman is actually just a further indication of the misogyny that's so heavily encoded in our society that they feel that any achievement like should go to a cisgender woman because there's so little there. And not to mention, there's no real acknowledgement of trans men. And if they are like, they have some sort of success in a cisgender men dominated space, like trans men are often regarded as invisible, which is a damn shame.
Trans men being invisible is
It's
a
a
shame.
double-edged sword.
It is a
It's
double-edged
like,
sword. At
they
the
get
same
to-
time, they're quite the Trojan horse. I mean, you know,
Right.
people think about trans people, they're always thinking about trans women. They're like, no, we got to protect the bathrooms. But like, trans women have been going to the women's restroom for a long time, and
Right.
it's not a problem. It's never been a problem. But you know what will create a problem? Banning trans people from going to the bathroom that they identify with, because all of a sudden you have trans men in the restroom with your wife.
Yeah.
Do you want a
Yeah.
trans
Wait,
man
Big
in the
what?
restroom with your wife?
men, but yeah, exactly.
Are you saying that trying to keep men out of the bathroom will put men into the bathroom? How have they not thought of this?
And
My
ladies, do
goodness.
you want me in the bathroom with your husband?
I mean, you made that sound really shady.
I'm just saying, you don't want me in the bathroom with your husband. Unless he's
Like, I
ugly.
can only imagine having to do that. Like,
No, I'm not gonna like give somebody a blowjob while they're taking
no,
a
no,
shit.
I'm not, I mean, holy fucking terms of like
You
imagine
imagine?
like, no, no, I don't mean that. Like, imagine like,
Alana, imagine it.
let's say like this law that they passed in Florida, they're passing, I think they're trying to pass another one in like South Carolina, maybe. I don't exactly remember.
Yeah, there's another place, yeah.
Yeah, but like imagine Republican Congress, Republican president in a couple of years, they try to make that a nationwide thing. Like,
That's the problem. People are only focused on the problems as they are now. They're like, well, you live in California. You're fine.
oh, it's gonna be part of their agenda for sure. And
Mhm.
what do you
Yeah.
do? Like, I could not. That would cause so many issues trying to use the men's room at this point. Like, I don't even. It's ridiculous.
We're
Good
gonna use
initiative.
the urinal for the first time in years. The nasty fucking wall bucket. The splash zone. Alana misses it. I can tell. Look in her eyes.
Every time I hear splash zone, it brings me back to SeaWorld.
That's what she called it. She called it
Walking into SeaWorld.
Free Willy, baby.
Okay, on that note, that is how we will close this one down. It's been fun talking with you both.
As always.
Same.
As
Yeah.
always.
Love you both.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait till next
Until the
time.
next episode, Tea for Tea. Bye, y'all.